Hi, my name's Don, and we are doing yet another video on what to look for when you're buying a Cougar. Hopefully, when you look at our videos, we have several of them now, it'll keep you away from some of the pitfalls in buying an old Mercury Cougar. I'm actually selling this car, but we're gonna focus this video on what to look for when buying. So walk around with me and let's learn a little bit. As you approach the car in the driveway for the first time, take your time, look at everything, and when something catches your eye, don't pass over it. Ask yourself why. Be a detective here. First thing I noticed in this very first corner when I walked up to it, in the barn I found it in down the street, believe it or not, just 2 miles away from our shop, been there for years, didn't know about it. First thing I noticed was grind marks around this light. Look at those grind marks. Now, what could that be indicative of? A wreck, maybe? I don't know. Well, as you may know, 68 had the light, 67 didn't. When I reach back here, and you can't see what I'm reaching for, there's no flange. The 68 fenders, when they punch the hole, there's a flange, there's a lip. This is a 67 fender. Somebody's cut a hole for this light. This car's been in a fender bender. Well, that's okay, but let's figure out if maybe there's some more damage we should look for. Okay, first thing I want to look at is this corner. Has it been worked? Is it wrinkled? Is it welded on? I see some factory chalk marks or grease pen marks. That looks good. This looks like the factory rubber seal bonded with factory staples. Aftermarket core support or even a service replacement core support wouldn't have this, so that looks good. I'm seeing these dimples here. If this panel had been replaced, I doubt they would have replicated those factory spot welds. I'm not seeing any wrinkle here, so if this was in a fender bender, it was in a light one. I don't see anything else having been replaced. Reason being, look at this. This grill here, that's a 68 grill right there. A 67 grill would be cut away. So I do believe that's a correct original 68 grill. Everything I see here looks correct and untouched. I like the alignment here. It's within tolerances. It's not perfect. These wheel lip moldings have obviously been replaced. They're way too nice looking, so somebody went to the dealership when they were still available and got these. 68 only brush trim rings. That's kind of a rare treat, and these are the correct style steel wheels for 68. 67 had a hole that was a little bigger here, and 67 was prone to cracking because of those enlarged holes, and 67 wouldn't clear these 68 disc brakes properly. So it's good to see the correct wheels here. Aftermarket caps, as evidenced by the fact that they won't move. Original caps are snap-on, so those are reproduction caps, which is fine. This being a 392 barrel car, has these emblems here. Very hard to come by. People like to sand the car and do paint on there and grind the edges off. So very rare, hard to find emblem there. This is touch-up paint we did. It had peeling paint and we figured it'd look better. But look close at spots like that for hidden rust. Look for pimples down here. Here's where I always look. See these pimples here? That's actually better than average. If you see a patch right here, that's not so good. If you see lots of dimples here, that's expensive to fix. Next thing I always do, I don't even have to look. I feel this edge. And I just go like this. And if my fingers go like this, that's what I call a swollen seam, and that's rust. So you should also have an awl and poke around in there too. This one's super solid in here. I always look in these door jamb areas, especially if I've noticed the fender's been replaced. Maybe it got hit from the side. Should be arrow straight in here. Shouldn't see any filler, wobbly marks. You shouldn't see a pile of shims in here. This is just what it looks like from the factory. In fact, this one even has its original seam sealer still in place. That's a good sign. Look for the pimples in the rear of the doors too. Also, right here, they love to rust out in this area. And I do this with my fingernails a lot. I'm looking for, you know, kind of a tinny, hollow sound, not a thud, thud, thud. I also look real careful at these lines. You see how how that's a gradual line right there. A lot of times when they get in a wreck or they fix rust, they try to recreate this line and it'll be really sharp. Should look very mellow. I want to say washed out, but anyway, a gradual curve here, not a sharp line. Here's the next place I look for rust. Right in here, it fills up with water down here. And I actually like to squeeze in this area and fill in here. And if it goes crunch, crunch, that's bad. Again, if you suspect anything, you should have an awl and be kind of probing away at it. Okay, here's one everybody misses. Well, I won't say everybody, but people that haven't watched my videos. Before you even look, feel. Oh, listen to that crunch. I don't know if you can get it on the mic. Oh, look what, see what I'm seeing flake down here? This is bad. This is very, very bad. Look at that. Now let's get our eyes in here. Yeah, at first glance you'd say, oh, it's kind of rusty. Anytime you see a hole like this, you can expect it gets much worse from there. Just like cancer, when you detect a little cancer in your body, yeah, it's spread. This is what I would say is a non-repairable trunk lay. This is gone. But the good news is, the previous owner, years and years and years ago, got a junkyard deck lid. It comes with the deal. That's perfect. I'm not going to put it on because it's not red. But notice you look out here, it looks fine. You'd think, there's no rust in this deck lid. Oh, right, see that telltale sign right there? If you see a dot there, expect a crater back here. Expensive piece, 500 bucks for a good one if you can find it. Here's another telltale sign. There's supposed to be a hole right here, as you've seen in my other videos. Didn't get painted from the factory. Often rust occurs around here. What they did when they put a cheap paint job on this years ago is they slathered over it. You can actually see the filler. That's not correct. So again, there's some rust here, and we know it. Water often finds its way down to the lowest part of the trunk, but in this car's case, nice, really nice. And I always feel in the very, very corners of these quarter panels. Bodyman can fix this area pretty good, but these corners are hard. So if you feel any lumps or bumps or filler in here, you know it's been hit from the corner. Both of these quarters feel great in that respect. Detail items like this are worth a fortune. As these cars get passed from owner to owner, guy has 2 Cougars, maybe he wants to upgrade. Often they rob little things like this. You'd be surprised what just this little original piece is worth. An original jack these days can fetch a couple $100. Nice to see an original style steel spare. When you bought style steel wheels, you should have 5, not 4. Ancient old tire here. That's not original, but it's era correct. It looks kind of cool. Here's a big boo-boo. Well, yes and no. These are not factory. These were dealer installed. These came from auto parts stores. These were, of course, to protect your car from door dings. And the Cougar has a bulbous body line here that's very prone to getting body damage here, so people put these on. In my opinion, these are far more ugly than door dings. I'll take door dings any day. But here's where people go wrong. They send their car to the body shop. They get their $8,000 paint and body work overdone. Then they call me and say, I need new strips here. I'm like, sorry, there's no new strips. What? I got holes. Fill the holes. Do not put this crap back on. It looks terrible, devalues your car, and you won't find good replacements. Here we go, rust. Again, if you see a tiny little pimple on that, don't kid yourself. That isn't a $200 fix. Well, it might be, but inevitably, if you see rust there, you're going to be cutting out something like this, because all that metal around here is usually thin. Oh, you might get lucky and do a patch this big, but that's costly to fix. So if you see a car that's like gone here, oh boy, budget it in. Don't pass up the car, but don't kid yourself. That's expensive. No bubble there. Little tiny bubble here. Remember what I was talking about, these emblems? People like to run their sander over them. He got a cheap paint job on this years ago, and you can just kind of see where they hit their DA here. Also, the guy that was taking the car apart thought these pried off, so he put his screwdriver back here, and you can tell he broke a stud and bent the emblem. He ruined a $200 emblem. That's never going to be reproduced. Very rare item. More important than the deck lid is the hood. This one's not as bad as the deck lid, but that little rust there, you might want to overlook that. Don't. That is going to be, that's going to take a repair. Same over here. See that bubble there? If I was to take an awl through this right now, oh, look at that. Didn't even need an awl. That's expensive to fix. Don't overlook that stuff. Almost every Cougar this age has it, but you know, maybe the seller of the car doesn't even know. Point that out to them. That's costly to fix. Also, you can sometimes just go like this. Look what's going on here. You know, that tells you a certain amount of decay is going on inside. When they made these cars from the factory, they didn't get any paint behind here. They bonded the bare metal pieces together, then sprayed it. Their goal was to make this car last 10 years, not 50. Okay, let's point out some little things I see right off the bat here. Well, that spins good, but inevitably you put a belt on it and spin it at full speed, it's going to make noise. Keep in mind, we rebuild these. Don't throw these away and buy a cheap aftermarket one. This core is worth money. Get your original rebuilt. I always like to see if the compressor's froze up. Look for a part number on the fan there. I like to see these original shrouds with the FOMO Co. The reproductions are plastic. This is more of a fiberglass, and they're very valuable, and it's very rare not to see one that's been broke right there. That's a very valuable piece. Always look real close for cracks in the shock towers, especially on big block cars. Go ahead and point your camera down there. This one is perfect. That is a rare treat. I always look close at these aprons. Look for telltale signs of wrinkle in here. If you see wrinkle there, that could mean the hood flew up, often the case. It could also mean it was in a pretty good collision and shoved the thing back. So look for any irregularities in these aprons. Big block cars, I like to take these off and throw them away and put in the one-piece export. They flex so much, especially on big block cars. And of course, we show the video on how to reinforce these shock towers, even on small block cars, so they won't crack. Must. If you're rebuilding the front end, get in there and put the plates in there we sell. Okay, here's a treat. These pieces here are getting to be so rare. Reason being is, look how easy I took it off. These get lost all the time. The Cobra Jet one is reproduced. This is 390 only, 68 only, not reproduced. You'd be surprised how valuable that is. This not being a GT, being an X code, that's a common as dirt snorkel as found on a Ford pickup for years. No big deal there. But that heat shield down there and this, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Also this canister. X codes came either way. They weren't high performance cars, so they didn't really need this extra air inlet here. But it's been my experience that some have this lower canister and some don't. So it's kind of neat that this car has it. So this car can be a fake GT pretty easy. Rechrome this lid, a couple other things, and it's going to be all intensive purposes a GT. In my opinion, a vinyl top devalues a car by hundreds of dollars. Reason being, there's always, it seems like, some rust hidden. If you can take your thumb and you hear it go crunch, 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 that's almost a car to walk away from unless you really want to put in the labor. We've done a video on how to replace the top, but trust me, you don't want to. These pimples here, those are all, that's a big one right there. That's going to take some labor to get that ground down and welded back in place. This car is way better than average, but don't just pass right over those bumps. Each one is going to take individual time to fix. The number one area where these vinyl top cars rot are right in here. The water just seems to pool right in here. I don't feel any bumps or crunch in this one. This one feels super solid along here. That's a good thing. You know, bring your buddy along with you and have him distract the owner while you go back there and really reef on his car. That matters. I mean, we sell this patch right here, but you'll have to hand fabricate any rot that you find up here. Luckily, this one's a rock solid. One thing I like to do when I'm serious about looking at a car is buy a deluxe Marty report. Don't be a cheapskate. It's like 40 some odd dollars online, and it'll tell you everything you want to know about how the car left the factory. And it's a nice thing to walk up to the owner and say, here, look what I got you for your car, original documentation. They'll be floored, and you'll just get it right back if you buy the car. But it's nice to know what the car came from with. You can show the owner, hey, your car used to have a console. No, it didn't. Well, look at the Marty report. Money well spent. Anyway, that being said, my Marty report matches on this car to a T. I really like how nobody's boogered with anything here. The second owner, bought this car when he was a teen and was conscientious enough not to mess with the 8-track. He didn't cut anything, original knobs, original radio, everything. Lockbox, stock, just the way it should be. That's a big deal. This is $1,000 right here. The steering wheel, believe it or not, having what I call a kid wheel on it, that could be $1,000 by the time you locate a core and spend $450 on a restoration and buy this. I mean, we're talking expensive. So this one had a wrap on it, and so when I got the car, I figured, oh, it has a wrap on it. It means it's cracked and ugly underneath. No, what it meant in this case was when the car was brand new, they wrapped it and preserved it. Look at the wood grain on this. There is no restoration service out there that replicates this wood grain. So this is a big deal. This steering wheel is actually worth several $100s. Nice to see an original dash pad here, still straight and pliable and, you know, a little dark on the top like they all are. Nice to see all this untouched. Tilt column. A lot of people don't even know they have tilt. There's been people, I've had customers that have owned a car for 15 years and had no idea until I step in their car that it was a tilt column. Unlike Chevrolet, there's no second lever. So, you know, depress this turn signal wand in there and see. This one's rock solid. Well, not rock solid. There's a little slack in there, but that's within tolerances. A lot of people say, I only have a tilt. Sorry, they didn't make a tilt only. All tilt columns in 67 to 69, Mustang, Cougar, and Thunderbird were tilt away. An original tilt away car will have a second button here. I'm not hearing anything. I should hear a click, 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 click every time I push on this. That means somebody had a problem there and disconnected it. That's okay. These are actually easy to troubleshoot. We got a guy here that full-time rebuilds columns for people. Keep that in mind, Mustang, Cougar, and T-Bird owners. But you need to have all the equipment. And a lot of times on junkyard tilt columns, people don't realize that they tilt away. So they just go and grab the tilt column and split. They don't take all the wiring that feeds through the dash. They don't take this vacuum component here. So reach down and feel for this on a tilt away car. This one seems to be all here. That's sweet. Also on a tilt away car in 68 and 69, you'll see the can bolted to the fender well there. And a 67, it's bolted under the battery tray in most cases. Door panels are a big deal on these. A lot of people think when they see faded or ripped door panels that they're going to spray paint them and they're going to do a little vinyl repair. Well, look at the texture on this. Pretty hard to fix a rip on this. And if you look really close, you'll see some marbling, I call it, and little shades, undertones of black in there. You spray paint this panel, that goes away forever. There's a few artists out there that can, you know, replicate that, but it's a big deal. Armrests on these are a big deal. These are worth more than $100 a piece because 68 only, XR-7 only. Mustang, which is reproduced, looks like it and it'll work and we sell them, but it's a smooth texture. Keep that in mind. No big deal on these. These are actually reproductions that I put on because the originals were faded. Look at your map pockets. Pretty easy to put new elastic on there, but these kitty pockets are getting hard to find. Remember, the Cougar always walks forward. Another thing I see in these door panels a lot is a big circular pattern here, and that's from the window cranks. gouging into the panel. That's pretty impossible to fix. These are not reproduced. Your goal is to get them from somebody that never wore their seatbelt. This person wore their seatbelt, and every time they let go, they chipped this up. No big deal on these. These are reproduced, and there's quality reproductions out there. But keep in mind, these door panels, these are worth, in 2015 anyway, these are worth $600. Then you start adding all this other stuff, get it $1,000 right here in these two panels. So having really clean panels really helps the value of the car. I want to point out some wear here. You know, they usually have this. This one's better than average. A good vinyl repair guy could actually fix that. The boards are often broken on these. This one, I can't feel, but I'll bet money there's some cracks back there. We sell these backer boards. They're hard to put in, but don't discount panels because the boards are bad. They usually are. But this is a bad deal right here. You can see what happened here. Somebody tried to take this screw-off bezel off with a screwdriver. That's what they did. We have a tool that fits over this that takes this off, so that'll never happen. But that's what keeps this pair of door panels from being a $600 door panel right there. I always look for these tags. I like to see the original rivets, not Phillips screws, and I like to see them in their original place. It should match identical to the picture of the tag on the Marty report. Another thing I like to look for in old cars that have been in barns is rodent damage, pest tracks. If you find one little mouse turd or rat turd, for every one you find, there's 1,000 more hidden. Check this out. You might overlook a hole in the headliner and say, oh, it's an old car. If that's the worst of the headliner, no big deal. Well, if you look close, it's not a rip because there's no flap of material going behind it. The mice ate that. You can see there are little nibble marks all around the perimeter. So when you rip out this headliner, you might find a surprise. I guarantee you're going to find some nesting and some turds. Mouse urine is one of the most corrosive substances known to men. I've bought cars where it's gone down the pillars, and the pillars, you could just crumble them in your hands. Not so on this car, but don't overlook that stuff. Can't stress this enough. I know I've said it a lot of times. Don't buy a car until you've seen underneath. I don't care if you have to spend $150 to use the rack for a half hour and drive 40 miles out of your way. You're buying a pig in a poke unless you look at the important side of the car before you purchase. Oh, this side's important too, but the underside so much of the time tells so much more. Okay, starting at the forward portion here. A little damage is indicative of a floor jack. A lot of damage is indicative of the wajibi's being driven out of it. This car's been bottomed out here, but more important, you want to look at this piece here. That's nice, hasn't been T-boned, or nice edge here, good contour, no rust. That passes. Okay, let's look over here. Aha, look what we see here. Rot. Again, don't assume that you're just going to patch this. You see a hole this big, you're going to be cutting out probably the whole section here. Okay, we have an unoriginal chrome oil pan. He did have this motor rebuilt years ago, so he probably did a couple of extras there. I'm not fond of that. Original light duty sway bar as seen on an Xcode. I'd go the rest of the way on this car and upgrade to GT on that. What we're really looking for is damage and rust. But while we're here, we might as well check the steering box. I'm going to reach up there and wiggle it. Hey, look at that. This one's not even out of adjustment. I'm wiggling that rag joint just a little bit, and I'm seeing a little movement there. That's good. Although I do feel a click, 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 click in the tilt column. So there's a looseness in that tilt column. Watch our suspension troubleshooting, power steering troubleshooting video on that, and I show how to diagnose all that. But there's something going on in that tilt column that's not right. It's just a little bit loose. Torque boxes. Us West Coast people rarely find rust here, but see just a little bit of rust starting there. You East Coast guys, if you see it expanding, that torque box has got to come out. That's not a cheap repair either. This is nice original stuff here. Look at this though. Look at that. You'd think, oh, that's just a tiny little spot. Oh, that's not a tiny spot. Again, if you see a little spot like that, who knows? This whole area could need replacing. Look at this right here. That's paper thin. See how this flexes? This is a rusty floorboard. This has had water from the inside. It'd be really easy to overlook this, especially if you didn't put it on the lift. But that means a floorboard section is most likely going to have to be replaced. Oh, you might get lucky and do a section. Don't count on it. Here's another one. Look at this tiny little hole. Again, you might want to discount that. Don't not buy the car because of a floor pan like this, but factor it in when you buy it. I guarantee you this isn't going to be a little patch. This is going to be maybe a whole floorboard in here. This one feels more solid than the other one, to be honest with you. It's not real flexy, but that's going to be weak in that area. Let's look at this torque box. This is probably just indicative of a floor jack placed wrong. Nice and solid, we like to see that. All original, no weld marks. Okay, this exhaust appears to be original to this point, but muffler's back has been replaced. That's okay, that's normal. I like to see these original hangers. These right ones are easy to come by. Only dual exhaust 4-barrel cars got the left one or these big blocks. That's a $400 set. The rear end looks original. Let's look at the tag. Okay, I see 2.75. That looks original. Here's the point where you want to have the awl in hand. I like to get a needle sharp one. This is great. But you see this little bubble here? That's not a bubble in the paint. That is rot. Look at that. There I am. So you do have a patch to cut out there. This looks great though. Way above average. Here's this other one right here. See that? Don't be fooling yourself. That's not paint bubble. That's rot. Here's another one. Look at that. Now that one might not be. Oh, I was right. Look at that. Look what I just did. Don't buy this car. No, just kidding. Of course, you're going to want to see if the headlights work and the taillights work. Even if they do work, they're usually on their way out. So many people get hung up on that. That's the most important thing about a Cougar. Don't worry about it. The solid state electronic module on the back, which I put in this car, is cheap. The headlights, there's multiple ways you can go on these. Most people are putting electric in there these days. Not cheap, but they all need it sooner or later. Of course, we rebuild the vacuum actuators too. But just assume you're going to spend $1,000 between the two on those, and you're fine. So it actually works to your benefit when you buy the car that they don't work. And then that way you can factor it in. If they do work, do know they're probably going to go out pretty quick. One thing you want to factor into these barn finds that have been sitting for a decade or more is the first 30 miles you drive them, they're going to break down about every 2 to 5 miles. On this car, we had to do a water pump, miscellaneous electrical. Of course, we had to do tires, a brake booster. But anyway, fresh out of the barn, that means money. So keep that in mind. Heater cores often break, you know, the first hot day. So factor that in. Heater cores on an AC car aren't fun. When you're driving it, you're looking for clunks, you're looking for it pulling to the left, to the right, you're watching the temperature gauge. I always like to do at least one panic stop too, and see if all, you know, if one of the rears lock up before the other, or if it just acts like it should. In summary, try to spend a whole afternoon with the car if you can. Drive it, touch it, wiggle it, poke at it, ask questions. Don't be rushed. Sometimes the adrenaline, the endorphin release, the excitement of it makes you just want to make an offer and do it. Just play it cool and take your time on these cars. You're going to find all these things eventually. It's better to find out about them before the negotiating begins. Hope this helps in your purchase of an old Cougar.